guest joining us in studio, Keith Thompson, is a sergeant with Idaho State Police, and he pops in about once a month or so and spends a few minutes with us talking about some updates and some very important things you need to know. And we were just talking off air about some of the traffic issues. And, we've talked in the past, Keith, about the interstate, but I
Right,
think that a lot of times we don't really delve into what's going on a lot of the secondary and back roads in the area.
right. And we just had an atrocious fatality. In fact, where someone still may die from that fatality. And a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, and it was all because of drinking and driving and running a stop sign. And I just like to remind people. I think people get into, drive the same road every day, and they realize that at this time of day, no one's coming through. Usually at this point, I'm in a hurry, and those stop signs tend to be ignored. And I just like to remind everyone, stopping means no sensation of movement. There's no movement. It's not slowing down and pausing. It's not, it's stopping. Your tires are no longer moving. The car is no longer moving, and it's a complete stop because the majority of people out here. Do what we call the California stop. They slow down, they look, they think they're safe, and they pull out. And I've never seen anyone in a crash that failed to completely stop at a stop sign or failed to yield at a stop sign that said they saw the other car coming. Never. I mean, they don't intentionally pull out in front of people. But if we completely stop, take the couple of seconds to look left, to look right, maybe look left again, and then go, we'd have a lot less crashes out there. And not thinking that we stopped. I mean, I've pulled people over too. Well, I did stop. No, your tires are still moving, and I got it on video. But they just need to make sure the tires stop moving. Maybe count 1,001, 1,002, look around, and then pull forward before leaving that intersection. And of course, don't drink and drive. That's a gimme.
And tomorrow night we have the work Christmas party. But I noticed last year one of the things I've seen that's changed. I can recall going to these parties 25, 30 years ago, and there was a lot of alcohol. I don't think anyone had an alcoholic beverage last year at the event. But some parties are still like that. They get a little out of control for some
Right.
people.
And if they are, that's great. But you know what? Set up an Uber driver. Set up a taxi. There really is no excuse to get in that vehicle and drive. And I challenge people before you start drinking, already have that plan in place because the first thing that goes when you start drinking is judgment. And you think you're 10 foot tall, bulletproof, and I'm not drunk, I'm drunk. And one of my favorite questions I used to ask people, well, are you drunk or just a little buzzed? Well, I'm just buzzed. All right. Okay. Well, that's good enough for me. And, so the main thing is set that plan up before you even go.
Can you grab a
So,
headset because we
yeah.
have a caller looking to join us. Keith Thompson from Idaho State Police is in studio with us. It's 8:36. Caller, you're up next. Go ahead.
Yeah, if people will notice, when you come to a complete stop, there will be a backward movement in your vehicle. You don't get that backward movement if you don't completely stop.
Yep. You're correct. You got that jostle, if you will. So,
And I know that when I come to work in the morning, I try basically, even though when I'm coming in, I sometimes come up to intersections and there's no other traffic. But I've tried to discipline myself where I come to that full stop. And then I still do the look both ways, which I figure is the safest thing to do.
right. And I hear that excuse a lot too. Hey, there's no other cars there. Well, I was there because I saw you. And I'm going to be honest with you. That's something I don't. I've done so many crashes from running stop signs. They're so horrific because of the angle and the speeds that I just cite no matter what now on that. I guess I'm without mercy on that anymore. So
And the other thing too, I notice sometimes people are a little confused if you come to a four-way, especially if you're a little close. And my decision is I just generally wave the other person through because that way I know that we're not going to have any conflict.
and I don't mind that. Just remember, whoever the first one's there has the right of way. If both arrive, it's whoever's on the right. Be careful about waves. I mean, one thing that I get upset with waves a little bit is when we're in like a 4 lane or something like that, and someone waves you on, and there's another car coming beside them. That's still your fault if you listen to that. So, yeah, just be careful on those.
We've got about a minute to go. We'll squeeze another caller in. Caller, you got to make it quick, but go ahead. You're on the air on KLIX.
Real quick. Good morning, everybody. Hey, on the driving errors and stuff, I've driven semis since I was 15, 16 years old, millions of miles in every state in the country. The biggest thing everybody's doing these days, like the officer said, They come slamming on their brakes the last second. I can tell you why, because I'm looking down all day. Everybody, everywhere, all over is on the phone. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, that really is an addiction. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I catch myself distracted, and all of a sudden I realize, whoa, hold on here. I need to, get my eyes off that, put my eyes on the road, and whether you have to put that device away or whatever it might have to be, but yeah, it's easy to do, and everyone's there because technology. Everyone wants to talk to you, and so maybe just getting to a point where I know my cell phone has when it's in the car, it doesn't respond, and that might be a good answer for people just to have that discipline before you even get in the car. So
Want to thank him for the telephone call. And in the old days, we would have just, even before answering machines, you just call somebody back. But today we are worried about missing the call, I
right,
guess. I want
life's easier now.
to, much easier. We don't think so, but it is. I want to thank Keith Thompson for dropping by, Sergeant for Idaho State Police. We'll talk to you again in a few weeks.
Thanks you.
All right. We're going to, well, break protocol here. Keith Thompson is going to spend a few more minutes with us from Idaho State Police. We're at 8:42 at 16. Bill Colley with you too as well on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We got talking off air, and there's a few other items we have and that you may have too as well, especially when it comes to traffic issues, because we all uh, we all see things going on, and we all sometimes scratch our heads and wonder what to do about it or what direction to go. Speaking of that, we were talking off air when you first got in. I saw some photographs from over in the Rigby area yesterday, and there's a lot of snow on the ground. And they've had some good snowfalls over there going back to October already.
Right.
And if you don't travel to that part of the state too much, you don't realize it. But if you've got family there and in a couple of weeks you plan to go for Christmas, let's say, you should be aware that the conditions in Idaho between just here and Pocatello can change dramatically.
Oh, definitely. And like I said, I used to be the detachment commander for the National Guard over in Rigby, and it's like a different world. You're almost going into frozen tundra, it seems like. Be ready for that type of stuff. Understand that Idaho is very diverse in its weather patterns because of our hills and our valleys and everything like that. And so don't just assume because it's nice in Twin, it's going to be nice in Boise, or it's going to be nice in Pocatello or Idaho Falls. Always have that preparation of a kit to go with you. So.
That's the other thing too is I try to keep sometimes a blanket and I have a first aid kit that I usually carry along
Right.
and a couple of flares and a couple of actually 2 or 3 flashlights that I keep available.
Right, and some batteries and stuff like that. That's all good to have. So,
And again, it can happen, I'm sure, even on the highway because when I came to this part of the country, I think I got into Wyoming, and that's where I started seeing the gates where they can raise the gates to close off the interstate.
we actually have that on the other side of Burley and Hayburn at the split. We got a gate so to close off Sweetser because often Sweetser in the winter will give us in this area will give us a lot of headaches.
And
So,
that's just the blowing in many cases, right?
yeah, well, it's the drifting of the snow and sometimes the drifting of the dirt during the summer. We get brownout conditions, if you will, and those winds just hit just right, and those drifts make it impossible to get through. So.
Yeah, I caught a brownout like that last year or summer coming back from Utah, and there's that stretch of about 10, 15 miles in southern Idaho where
Right.
you hit the highway, and it is like a microclimate there.
It is. And I would like to tell people on that because every year we have this problem when we close the roads, it's not for your inconvenience. It's because if you got in trouble, we can't reach you now. The roads got so bad that we're not going to be able to get back to you, even in our four-wheel drive units. And so just kind of keep that in mind if you want to say, "Wow, I'm a better driver and I'm going to go through here anyway." Just keep in mind you might be there for a while.
I got lucky once last winter, and having spent a decade driving a four-wheel drive vehicle, and then I went and I bought a car. I wasn't thinking about this, and I was coming down Christmas Day, South Washington Street, and after I passed Glanbia, the snow had drifted, and it was like getting stuck in quicksand. I just could not move. And luckily, Christmas Day, a lot of people were good-hearted. They stopped and pushed me out. But if it hadn't been for these people on their way to visit some family, I might have been there for several hours.
Well, that last winter, I tell you, my heroes were the farmers because they had their backhoes out there because ITD only has so many trucks, and I got stuck way back on Highway 30, and and a good farmer came out there and he plowed me out, and I was very thankful for it. So
I was telling you a story off air. Last week, I was driving down Washington Street, and I had somebody hauling a trailer, but with a large, it was a tractor trailer unit, and just blew by me at the light at Filer. I mean, and this truck was really, really moving, and I thought, all right, you can ignore this. But when I managed to get up, there was a stoplight up by the college. And when I got there, I probably shouldn't be taking pictures, but I was stopped. I photographed the truck and I got the company name and the number on the truck. And I was able to call the office in the afternoon. And they were they were not angry with me. They were very happy that I'd called. At least that was the impression I got. And I gave them the time and I gave them the truck number. But on the other hand, I had somebody, a friend, I'll put it this way, chew me out for doing it, saying that we had too many snitches around. And I thought, this is near a college. If my kid was walking to class, I wouldn't want that person driving on the street.
yeah, the good old snitch theory. The reality is, if you're doing everything in a well done manner, I mean, we all make mistakes, but if you have a pattern of bad driving, I guarantee you those truck companies want to hear about it. We got a whole section of Idaho State Police that does truck inspections and stuff, and even if they don't write the trucker a ticket, if they have a negative inspection, that could raise that company's insurance, and as well as hazardous mover citations, which speeding is one of those. And I'm sure those companies would be very interested to know how their drivers are driving. So
We want to mention Sergeant Keith Thompson from Idaho State Police is in studio with us. We're coming up on 8:47, and we're at 18. I won't say holding steadily because the temperature has been bouncing every time the wind direction shifts today. Telephone number, if you'd like to reach Sergeant Thompson, is area code 208-736-0300, 208-736-0300. And again, perhaps you've seen something out there too that you found to be irritable, or you weren't sure if it was legal or illegal. Please feel free to share that with us. And, talking a little bit about winter driving, you mentioned the kit and the importance of that. The other thing is, people in this part of the country, I notice some of them still have chains for their tires. You don't see that a lot. It used to be nationwide in snow country, and then people started getting, Blizzaks, or they were getting better tires for winter. But in certain conditions, the chains are still really, I think, probably a good item to have.
they are. Both my older kids, I have chains for their cars, and because they travel a lot, and sometimes even the studded snow tires won't do as well as chains will to help get you out of a predicament. So
I actually used to help a friend. He had a farm on a hill, and but he only had an old Ford Falcon, and going up and down the hill, we would have to stop. We put the chains out, back up onto the chains, then lock them over the top of the tire. That was the way you did it,
yeah.
and then we could get up the hill. But without that old Falcon wouldn't go very far.
Yeah, and even today's chains, they're more of a cable or easier to hook up and stuff, so you don't have to mess with all that as well. So, and I know like some tire companies have that deal. If you don't use them, you could turn them back in and get a refund and everything. So they're worth getting for the winter. I mean, you might as well, if you don't use them, you don't use them. But that one time you have to, they're good to have. So
We have a caller with us, and caller, you're up next at 8:48 on KLIX with Sergeant Keith Thompson. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if it's good, bad, or indifferent, but I know what's irritating to me is going down the interstate when it's a 70 or an 80-mile speed limit, and I generally go around 78, 79, but then there's a couple of trucks, one trying to pass the other, and it takes about 10 miles to get around each other, and it's irritating.
it is irritating. I agree. So, I mean, we know it's going to take them longer to pass because they're only allowed 70 miles per hour. And if the truck passing is doing 70, the other one's doing 68, it's going to take a while. But if it does get to a point of, they're just road blocking, then just give us a call or which is Star ISP, and we'll go out there and we'll break up that little monotony, if you will. So
I see it happen a lot more between here and Boise than I ever do, let's say, between here and Pocatello.
yes.
It seems to be that once you get on that stretch of highway, it happens more often. We're about 10 minutes from 9 o'clock. We have another caller with us. Caller, you're up next, and you're on Top Story. Nope, caller, you can call. Oh, there we go. Caller is trying to get back to us. They tell me that after 2 minutes, if you're trying to call from a cell phone, it'll drop out.
Oh,
So since I'm not on that end, I take their word for it.
there's many times I think about calling, but I know my voice is recognizable now, and what I want to say will not be good. So.
Caller, you're up next. You're on the air.
Yeah, I just want to say a great big thank you to the Idaho State Police and the good work you're doing in these drug busts and helping control the gang problem. You know how dangerous work that must be for you guys, but you guys are really helping the families out here. You know, if you can just keep on getting those drugs off the streets. Thanks, man.
We'll do so. We're very, we got our detectives, which are specialized in narcotics, but we also have uniformed troopers with the canine that also specialize in getting drugs off our street, and they do a fantastic job. So
we have another caller with us. Caller, you're up next. You're on KLIX. Go ahead.
Oh, good morning. Talking about the winter driving. I'm former law enforcement, and I've lived my whole life in high desert community like this. And everybody thinks, oh, four-wheel drive. Well, four-wheel drive will get you there, but it won't stop you. And everybody calls me a sissy for lugging around chains, but it's cheap insurance. They're easy to put on, and they really help you stop a whole lot better than if you don't have them.
I agree. Four-wheel drives usually just mean the crash is more interesting in the median. So
yeah, well, it gets you through the snow. It doesn't do anything on the ice.
Right, the ice it's useless. I mean, it might get you out of the median, but I'll be honest with you, the majority of slide-off crashes are four-wheel drive SUVs. So.
I saw a fellow pass me one time on was not the interstate itself, but it was a spur, and he flew by me in a four-wheel drive pickup, and I was driving a Honda at the time. I don't, people, I don't sound very macho when I say that, but it was a reliable car. But he flew by me, and I got up to my exit, which apparently had been his exit. He'd gotten down to the bottom of the exit, skidded right across the highway below. Well, it was a secondary road, and the pickup was nose into the ditch. And I just thought, there you go. That shows you that he didn't have that stopping power.
Right. And they'd stop like every other car.
We have another caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Sergeant Keith Thompson.
Yes, good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
I just wanted to reiterate kind of on what that, not the last caller, but the previous caller said on the drug bust and everything like that. And, a lot of the news organizations, they post it up on Facebook and everything like that. And you see a lot of comments saying that you're wasting your time and you guys aren't, you could spend your time doing more productive things in their opinion. And I just want to tell you, there's lots of us that don't hold that to that idea. We think you're doing a fine job, and we really want you to keep it up because we know that aside from the occasional pothead that just goes around and they smoke their dope at home, the ones that are out here selling these mass quantities and transporting these mass quantities are actually real bad criminals. So I just wanted to jump in on his comment and thank you all guys for what you do and hope that you all stay safe.
Thank you. We appreciate it very much.
We have another caller with us. And caller, you're up next. You're on the air on KLIX.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I just started listening. I don't know. Did someone mention that the truck on Newland went sliding across Highway 24 and crashed up on the railroad tracks?
Today or?
Yeah, this morning.
I wasn't aware of it. I just came in service right before this radio show, though. So.
And then that, things like that are going to pop up on a regular basis, just because we're that time of year, I suppose.
Yeah, we average about 3 crashes a day. I mean, it seems like for the most part. But.
I want to thank the caller and caught us at a bit of a disadvantage. Quick point: a couple of callers complimenting the work that law enforcement does. Yesterday, I saw something on Facebook, and it alarmed me. And it's from a website, and it appears to be true. People are posting this as if it's true because, it's on the internet. And it's about 2 deputies in Georgia who supposedly killed a couple of hundred people, and then one supposedly shot the other, and because there was some confusion over who fathered the child, was it one or the other of a girlfriend. And I thought, this looks a little suspicious. So I started doing some research on this. Turns out these guys were characters in a TV show. What happened, though, was somebody borrowed this story from a European website about the TV show, and it's now being peddled, and there are people out there who believe it's true. And then at the end of this link, somebody had criticized the president for complimenting the hard work of law enforcement, and people are looking at this, and it's fiction, and that's the thing you have to deal with now that you didn't have to deal with 20 years ago.
Yeah, and you're going to deal with it no matter what. You can't make everyone happy. There is reality. Everyone's human, but when they do the studies, only about 2% of law enforcement is in there for reasons that are legal in nature and hurtful to others. No one ever usually becomes a policeman saying, I want to be a scourge to America, if you will. Some people go bad within the agency. Everyone's human. Everyone's got their bad eggs. But I'm going to tell you, the majority of police officers are there because they really believe in what they're doing. They want to serve the public, and they want their communities to thrive.
In the 8 years my dad was on patrol, he never once had to pull that revolver.
Amen.
Never. I mean, well, when he came home, when he removed it from the holster, that was it.
Yeah, that'd be the hope of everyone. So.
And I think it's generally that way, though, for most people in law enforcement, that most of what you're doing, you're pulling someone over for going through the stop sign, going 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles over the limit. But rarely are you ever dealing with someone who's got a hostage in the local bank.
Right. I mean, you got to prepare for it, but unfortunately, it seems like it's something that's happening more and more. And with that, the policemen have vamped up their training, if you will, for those type of things, active shooters and everything like that goes on. So
there was a time, I think, when it really was in smaller communities like Andy Griffith, but we didn't have drug problems at that time.
Yeah, and in the community, some of the communities I grew up, the guy that checked the water meters was also the town constable. And I remember as a kid, it was up in Julietta, Idaho. Whenever Idaho State Police came into town, I mean, we're on party lines and everyone's talking to each other. The state police are here. The state police are here. And we'd be wondering why they're driving through Julietta. Because you just didn't have those type of problems now. But.
I saw most of the state troopers when I was a kid. Well, one of them lived next door and another around the corner. But most of the time, I would see them when they take their lunch break at the diner, and then they'd eat their lunch and then they'd go back about their business. But if they got a radio call, they dropped the fork and they'd go. I mean, it was like instant, just like the firefighters would do when the alarm would go off.
Yep. Yeah. You eat on the fly sometimes.
I want to thank Keith Thompson for joining us this morning from Idaho State Police. Thanks for sticking around a few more minutes because I knew people were interested in some of these topics, and obviously they were. We've got news coming up from Fox in just a moment, and one more hour of Top Story just ahead.